So WarioWare Gold on 3DS is billed, I think, in the trailers and stuff, is like, hey, these are like the greatest microgames of all time. And I certainly had the impression that it was more in the vein of like a Mario Party, the top 100 for 3DS, which kind of like accumulated a bunch of those old games.
Like a greatest hits, like
right,
like a Mega Man X collection, Legacy Collection 1 and 2.
But the weird thing is with WarioWare, like every game kind of rekindles some of those old ones. So the fact that there's a lot of old games and micro games in this doesn't bother me that much. It's much more in line with the same teams, Rhythm Heaven Megamix on 3DS, which also kind of remixed and brought in a lot of the old things. But WarioWare Gold seems to be even more new stuff on top of that one. Like I've played, these are early impressions, right? I've played like maybe 3.5 hours. Kyle, I don't know where you're at.
Yeah, well, I'm curious because there's the way the game works is you get the they call it the mash mode where it's like just the buttons. They have the motion controls in the touchscreen.
Twist League.
Twist
and the Touch League.
Thank you. How much of those did you get through?
Oh, I finished the story.
You did all. Okay, great.
Yeah,
I did the first 2 rows, so I'm like working my way through the motion control ones. Okay.
Yeah, like that's the way it works, right? So it's fun because it's going through the different generations where starting out with MASH, it's like, okay, original WarioWare, I've played these games a million times, but they still add a surprising amount of new games in there. And also just like seeing those old classic games that I've seen so many times, but with new art is kind of jarring. Like the classic WarioWare catches the bottle sliding across the thing,
in
but
HD,
like
I guess you could say, right?
HD for 3DS.
Maybe new assets too, I think.
I think so. Yeah. Or like the cat with the umbrella in the rain. It's like, oh, this looks good now. This is very strange. Yeah.
Is there any sort of like in those structures of like leagues and stuff? Is there any hint of story? Because I remember them having.
Oh boy, is there?
In fact, we should talk about it. There is a story, an in-depth story. And it is fully voiced.
Really?
Wario has full sentences of dialogue that he says.
Wow. There's more VO from Wario in this game than I would argue any other WarioWare appearance combined.
Maybe more than Breath of the Wild.
It is absurd. This is one of the few faults is like they put a lot of story in the context of like a cutscene before each of these story missions and at the end. And I think like beating that story mode took me like 2 hours realistically. And so after that, it's just going to be grinding out the micro games, and they don't get in your face with that stuff. And you can skip these cutscenes if you want. Like they're all fine, just north of fine.
There are a couple that made me chuckle. Like they're funny,
right?
You know,
they're just
played
little
for jokes.
Cute shorts with pretty simple animation. But I was convinced that it wasn't Charles Martinet talking as Wario because he talks so much and his voice is deeper and weird, but looking up the credits, it's totally him.
Well, I think the reason that you thought that is because you never hear Wario say more than like, I'm gonna win. And so to hear him be like, oh, I'm gonna make a video game and then I'm gonna start a contest. Oh, I gotta make this money to make pizza in my microwave. It's like,
and the other thing you have to remember about this thing is to always mash the A button. It's like, okay, Wario, we got it here,
so
buddy.
Weird.
It is very strange. It's kind of unsettling.
And so like the overall like story premise, it's kind of a remake of 1 where it's Wario realizing that like, hey, video games make a lot of money. I'm gonna make some gold games, right? And so he calls all his dumb friends like Jimmy and Orbulon and all that stuff to come make games for him. But then this is where I lost a thread. It's also like being streamed out in like this tournament, and there's this little girl that wants to get back at Wario. It's a WarioWare style story, right? Like those characters, it's fun to see them talk and be presented in that way, but it's a little bit too much.
I like all the voices overall. It's weird to see them talk, but I don't dislike the voices.
Right. But this is very, very important, Kyle. I know you haven't unlocked it yet, but the most interesting thing, and what almost redeems the amount of cutscenes that there are through the story progression, is one of the things you can unlock through like a little gacha system, right? Where the whole thing, we'll get into it in a bit. One of the things you can unlock is the ability to go back to those cutscenes, and they just have separated out the roles, and you can re-record the dialogue for those cutscenes. So for every cutscene in the game, you will eventually unlock the ability to just go back and be like, I'm going to redo only Ashley's lines and just talk into the mic.
And it prompts you? It has like the...
Yeah, it gives the prompts, and then you can play it back with your voice. Cool. It's a classic WarioWare style dumb gimmick, which this game has a ton of.
You know what that reminds me of is the Metal Gear Solid 2 Substance disc. Like that where you could change out the characters in the cutscenes.
Right.
Yeah. That's cool.
Do they have any of those weird like mini game toys that sometimes okay.
Do you unlock a couple?
Yeah. Okay. So they brought some back, like some that they released separately on DSiWare. Those are in there as well. And so like the entire gacha system I think works pretty well for WarioWare, where you're earning coins a lot like you are in Megamix. But with this, it's like, all right, it'll be 600 coins and we'll give you a random something. And that can be art. It can be like player cards. It's a lot from like Nintendo's history. Like, here's a little fun fact about the Nintendo GameCube. And it's just weird. Like, all right, let's look at the GameCube, and then it has text talking about.
Some people
like,
still like the controller, you know.
Exactly, or it's like, what handle on a console? This is absurd. You know, it's like fun little. I'm into it just to see like Treehouse's writing on Nintendo's history.
I love those things. Like, one that I unlocked that I really liked is it's early to say, but maybe my favorite amiibo integration is you unlock this mode where you put an amiibo on the 3DS and Wario, it'll get scanned, and then Wario will do a painting of it. And they're all like weird and bad. Like I looked at our shelf and I was like, let me get the weirdest one. Oh, of course it's Wii Fit Trainer. So I put Wii Fit Trainer on there, and like he makes a painting that just looks like a child's crayon scrawl of the Wii Fit Trainer. And then this guy comes up who's French, and he's like, oh my gosh, I have to buy this. Let me buy this painting. And then he gives you coins that you can use that you can turn around back into the gacha machine. And you can do 3 a day. And you can do, as near as I can tell, every single amiibo produces a different drawing based on that amiibo.
Oh, that's so cool.
So yeah, it's like the micro games. You can unlock those, or like the micro games. You know, the separate standalone things. Also, just weird stuff like, oh gosh, what are some of the other ones? I'm trying to remember what it is. Help me out, Kyle.
There's like I haven't unlocked any, but it looks like you can unlock like Nintendo toys and stuff, like old school kind of, like I know like you can unlock details about like the GameCube, but there's that old Nintendo toy that was just like a claw that you could grab things from far away.
Right.
It looks like you can unlock that as like something you can tool around with on the 3DS, which is neat.
Another one that's bizarre is you can unlock alarm clocks based on the characters. So I unlocked like a Jimmy alarm clock, and it's like, all right, set the alarm time, and you do it, and then when it goes off, it's just like Jimmy screaming all of his voice prompts at you with just crappy music underneath, and then it makes you solve 3 micro games before you can wake up. It's just absurd good Wario toys like that.
This stuff is all awesome. I love this.
It's very fun. And like, I think the coin system works so well because you're obviously grinding for high scores in WarioWare, and that's a great time in and of itself. But just having like that added bonus of it'll unlock coins that you then put into this machine. You get some random toy at the end of it. Like, it's a good incentivizing system. And then in addition to that, they also have missions, which are basically just like achievements of, hey, score 45 with 9 volts games, stuff like that, which will give you even more coins.
And I don't think you can double up on the gacha machine, right? Like, I don't think you're going to get.
I haven't had any duplicates yet.
I think that's by design, which is good. Obviously.
So the last 2 questions I have for you guys is do they incorporate any of the multiplayer stuff from the GameCube version?
Not necessarily. Okay. There is a multiplayer battle mode in there. And I couldn't tell if it was local or online. I couldn't get it working last night, but there is some form of a multiplayer mode just to see who gets out first. Right. And in the additional modes that they have, there's some really odd ones. One of them is like you're driving Dribble and Spitz. Are those the 2 dogs, I think? You know, you're driving their taxi, and it's absolutely wild because you're on the 3DS, and it gives you points or docks it depending on what you do here, so you can't ride it out too much. But you control the speed of WarioWare's microgames, flashing through all of them, by where you're tilting the 3DS. So if you tilt it towards you, the games and like the progression through the microgames slows down. Whereas if it's like an easy game, you can just tilt it forward and it'll just speed through. So like being able to control the speed of these different, especially the Nintendo licensed stuff from like 9 volts, is so wild for that game. Or there's one with like the 2 ninjas, Cat, and I forget what the other one's name is. But like it's the top and bottom screen on the 3DS. And so the second she finishes a game up here, then she tosses it to her friend, and then you're playing it the next game down there, and it just bounces back and forth between the 2.
This is like Tetris DS, but for WarioWare, basically.
Dude, I really have been enjoying my time with it so far. It seems like almost everything I want from a WarioWare game. I haven't noticed.
Except for its platform.
Well, that's the thing. And they do enough 3DS specific stuff that I'm less burned about it. But just imagine the hype this game would have if it was launching on Switch compared to 3DS.
Yeah.
20 times as much?
Probably.
Like, I'd say 22.
Yeah.
Probably 22.
22 times, yeah. Do they do anything with the Wii version? Like any of the games from that?
They...
Smooth Moves.
Right.
Good question.
Not really. There is a micro game that incorporates the Wii. Like the Wii menu.
Like literally the Wii? Okay.
Literally the Wii, which is very fun. But they do, not necessarily that one, but it does remind me of that for like, you know, because you have the Touch It League, the Twist It League, and the Mash It League and all that stuff. And then there's, not to spoil anything, Kyle, but there's kind of like a remix where it's everything at once. And that reminds me of Smooth Moves. Because you remember with Smooth Moves, it would give you basically 2 prompts where it would say, hold the Wiimote like this, and then do this, and go.
Right.
And so this mode, it'll have basically that, where it's like, all right, you're going to be twisting it, and the game is this, and then go. But it feels faster.
So like
than smooth
modifiers.
modes.
Okay, that's really cool.
But in terms of like the ongoing legacy of WarioWare, it incorporates much more than I expected. It has like some Game & Wario, very specific
I was just about to ask that. Yeah.
modes and references, which is kind of fun, that Wii U game. And then it's one of those things I didn't even think about, but like, especially it comes through with 9 volts and 18 volts and 5 volts games. They're all in there. But they pull a lot from Nintendo's history since the last WarioWare game. And with the 3DS hardware, they can do even more. So there's weird stuff where there's like a Wind Waker micro game, and there's a Mario Sunshine micro game.
There's a Pikmin one.
Yeah, it's just weird to see these like fully 3D micro games, but they all work really well.
Anything from DIY? Like, do they have any
play
sort of
DIY.
It's basically like, does it have a creation suite?
No, not that I've seen so far. And I think I've unlocked all the modes at this point. I didn't see that in there. But overall, like, people always said that Twisted was the best WarioWare. That's what a lot of the hardcore fans always said, which I found interesting because I never played that one either. But going through like the twisting league, it started out and I was like, motion controls, this gimmicky stuff. How creative can it be? But I think those might be my favorite set of micro games.
Yeah.
There's a lot of really wildly creative stuff in there. The Touch It League, I think, is fine. There's some fun stuff in there too. But
I think WarioWare Touch, that's what it was called on DS.
the DS,
I think that was actually the one I played the most.
Oh, really? Okay.
I remember getting like unlocking everything, but I love the original. Like I like the Twisted League too. Like I like Twisted on Game Boy. Like it was like same sort of thing where I was like, I don't know, motion controls, we'll see. But it's simple. It's just rotation entirely, and they do a lot with it, you know. And I think the original is probably still my favorite though.
Yeah, certainly the one
I didn't even play the original. Like, I played the DS one was my first one, and then I played the GameCube and Wii ones, and then I went back like through that ambassador system. I played the first one. That first one is still really, really good.
Yeah, it's amazing. Yeah. I don't know if it's worth pulling out. Maybe we can do the new gameplay today, which in theory should be up on GameInformer.com by now. It'd be worth doing this, but there's a lot of more than average for Wario poop themed micro games.
Really?
Even like boss games, like there's a lot of good poop humor in this WarioWare, which is like primo Nintendo.
How many photorealistic things are you interacting with? Of like
there's
cats and things like that.
Yeah, there's a couple in there. The art in a lot of the micro games, I just love. Even some of the new ones, it's just wild.
Is the one where you're trying to run out the roll of toilet paper? Is that one still in there?
I think it is.
Okay, good.
Yep, I'm pretty sure it is. Yeah, and so there are 300 micro games, so they say.
So yeah, it's not every micro game, right? Like
it doesn't
just says,
seem that way.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of
there's some that just wouldn't be compatible, you know.
Right.
On DS,
I wish it was the Smash Brothers Ultimate strategy of, hey, we've got everything in
like
there.
They could just say flat out,
every
like,
game is here.
Yeah.
Right, but it feels so close to that, and I don't want to.
It feels like a new game, which is the big takeaway for me. Even not
new enough for WarioWare.
Yeah, like I mean, there are a lot. It's only about half the games that I'm like, oh, I remember this one, and maybe it's a matter of, you know, some are new, but some also I just don't remember.
Yeah.
But it's enough where I really feel like this is a new WarioWare experience, which is exciting, which is more than I expected of it when I first started.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm really, really loving it. I would definitely recommend
Can't wait to play it.
That was just a clip from a larger show called The Game Informer Show. You can find it on iTunes, Google Play, or GameInformer.com. We take the fun opportunities and exclusive information from Game Informer magazine and boil it into a show that airs every Thursday with exclusive cover story information, developer interviews, a lot of fun stuff. So come love games with us.